everyone, I'm Rachel Bahor, and welcome to another Teen V segment. I'm here with Joe Donahue, host of the Roundtable on WAMC. How are you today, Joe?
I'm wonderful. Thank you very much for the invitation. Great to be here.
No problem. We have a bunch of questions for you today.
Excellent.
So my first question is, were you able to record this morning since your voice is...
Yeah, I don't normally sound like this for people who are watching. I have a normal radio voice. I woke up yesterday, my voice started to slide. And when I woke up this morning, I thought, well, I could get through today. I'm good. And then by the time I got to work, my voice was really bad. And I had a colleague. I was still on the air, but I didn't do the heavy lifting of doing all the announcing because not that it hurts or that it feels bad, more so because I think the listeners will just say, ugh, and it's repel and not want to listen. But so we got through it. So thank you for putting up with my frogginess this morning.
Okay, so what are some of the advantages that you find working through radio as opposed to television?
Well, normally I don't have to get dressed up like this, so that's cool. You are the great thing about radio. The thing I've always loved about radio is that we call it theater of the mind. So in television, we're very worried about appearance. We're very worried about how we look, what the shot is. We have the books here. We look very cool. In radio, it's more about the content. And by the way, I'm not saying that one is better than the other, but I am saying that they're different. And so I've just always gravitated more toward radio because I'm interested in that, in what is being said and the content, and less about the visual aspect of it. And they're both very cool. I, like you, in high school, worked extensively in television. I had a television class that I spent all of my time in. And it was sort of there that I realized that, yes, I love this, but I really enjoy radio, and that's what I like to do.
So when you're on air, since they can't see you, how do you give your listeners a personal feel?
I think it's by what you say. I think it's by they get to know you. I mean, one of the great advantages I've had is I've been at the same place for 20 years, and people get to know you after a while. You don't go away. And because they know you. The weird thing about radio is, unlike television, is that, and this sounds a little creepy, but I'm with you wherever you go. So if you get up in the morning and your clock radio goes off, you hear my voice. And if you're in the car, I'm with you. And when you're brushing your teeth, and when you're in the bathroom, and when you're, and so all those personal places where you're alone, you're listening to the radio. It's where most people listen to the radio, either in their car, at home, at night, whatever the case may be. So they feel kind of a one-on-one connection with you, and because they have that one-on-one connection with you, they get to know you, and they get to know when you're having a good day, when you're having a bad day, when you sound like you don't normally sound, and I love that. That's very, very cool. It's unlike television in the sense that, at television, if you want to watch somebody you like, you watch them at 7:30 every night or 7:30 on Wednesday night, whereas in the radio, you just turn it on and we're there with you.
Right. What overall do you like about working at WAMC?
Well, I really found my home there. I've always, quick backstory is that I always wanted to be in radio, from the time I was 4 or 5 years old. So my joke is that I'm either incredibly focused or horribly narrow-minded. I never really, yeah. But I went to work in commercial radio when I was a kid doing commercials. And then when I was 11, 12 years old, and then when I went into, as I said, high school, I continued to do the commercials. In college, I started to work at a commercial radio station, and I worked there for 7 years. And when I learned everything I felt I could learn, I always knew that I wanted to go to a public radio station because it was an opportunity for me to be able to talk to people in depth, and that's where that's done. And so I found WAMC. I was a fan of the station prior, and got the job, and I've been there ever since.
So since you've been in radio so long, sometimes when you're on air, do you forget that you're on air, or is that always in the back of your mind?
I think it's always in the back of your mind. I think it's, I liken it to watching your language at the dinner table with your parents. You know, you may not, there's things that you say at a certain time that you wouldn't say in other opportunities. And I think you're sort of always aware of it in the back of your mind. I think any of us that have been in the business for a long time have a mortal fear that we're going to be caught in the air saying something horrible about somebody or saying something bad. But I don't see it happening ever, just because I think we're always very conscious of it. But it's not to say that I'm not. I'm usually just very relaxed there because it's home. It's a nice little confined space, and it is. I am very comfortable, and in that aspect, I can forget that I'm on the radio. And if I have a guest and they're sitting in that chair and I'm talking to them, it's about the conversation. It's not me worried about being on the radio.
Do you remember the first person that you interviewed?
Oh, wow. I did interviews in high school and in college. And I would go, I had a children's show, and it was called the Uncle Joe Show. And I would read stories, and I would do things, and I would interview, I would do a Mr. Rogers. Do you remember Mr. Rogers? I would do that kind of thing where I would go to like the music shop and have the guy tune a guitar or that kind of thing. And that would sort of be the first interview. The first big interview that I ever had was, I grew up in a high school outside of Philadelphia. And the first big interview I had was, word got out that I was doing a series on the election of 1984. And Geraldine Ferraro, who was the first female candidate ever, was running with Walter Mondale on the Democratic ticket, and was in Philadelphia for the debate, the vice presidential debate. And word filtered down that we were doing this thing, and they wanted to do an interview with a kid in a high school, and I got to do the interview.
That's so cool.
It was frightening. It was absolutely paralyzingly frightening, because not only are you talking to a woman who could be the vice president of the United States, but you've got the national media who's sort of on the other side of the glass. That's and it was really weird, but it was very cool.
Who are some of the most interesting celebrities that you've interviewed?
Well, let's see. I'm a book guy, so I love talking to people who are sort of icons. So I've been very lucky that people like Arthur Miller, who wrote Death of a Salesman, or Stephen King, or Maya Angelou, these amazing writers, Kurt Vonnegut, that I've been able to interview. Some have passed on, others are still with us. And so through my career, I've been able to talk to them, and that's amazing. I've gotten to talk to presidents. I've gotten to talk to a lot of great actors and really famous people, and they're all pretty cool. It's a neat situation. I think the ones that are most meaningful for me, I mentioned Mr. Rogers before. You know, when you interview somebody who is an idol of yours, that's really cool.
Right.
And I have been lucky enough to interview some of my idols, and so Fred Rogers, Mr. Rogers, David Letterman, James Taylor, people like that who I've just admired, Bob Newhart, that I've admired my whole life, and getting an opportunity to sit down and talk with them has been really special.
So when you find out that you're going to interview someone, how do you come up with what you're going to talk about?
Preparation takes a lot of time. It's really hard, as you know, in just doing this interview. It's hard, and you have to plan a lot. And I think the easiest way to do it is, and I'm in a position to do this, not everyone is, but I'm in a position to be able to kind of pick who I'm going to have on the radio. And with that said, the people that I pick are people that I'm interested in.
Right.
So it makes the preparation a little bit easier. And if they've written a book, I want to read the book. And if they have a new movie out, I want to see the movie, or I want to hear the record, or I want to do whatever is necessary to be ready for that interview. The preparation is a lot. It's the most time-consuming part of it, but it gives you the confidence to be able to sit down and know that you can hold your own with that person. And I think that most people are sort of disarmed when they realize that you have taken an interest in what it is that they're doing. And they will give you more and talk to you more once they realize that you've invested some time.
Right, you're actually really interested in what they're doing. Do you have a signature question that you ask everyone that you interview?
I've never noticed it, but I've certainly had listeners and producers and people tell me that I do. I will often start off with, say, what brought you to this particular space? What brought you to this project? What brought you? And it's kind of a vague, open-ended question that can just bring you down, because people can take it in a number of different ways. If somebody does a movie about the Holocaust, and then you could say, okay, well, what brought you to this project? That can start with a very intimate story about their family, or it can talk about something historical that they wanted to explore, or something that they heard, or a project that was offered to them. The other one I get accused of asking a lot, which is probably true, which is where does your optimism lie? A lot of times when you're talking to news people and newsmakers and talking about the environment or talking about politics or talking about different subjects, people are very negative and will say, the world's going to end and we're all going to die, and it gets very heavy. And at some point, I just want to stop and say, okay, but what should we be optimistic about? Like, where are we? What should we be happy about today?
When you're interviewing someone, is there certain radio etiquette that you have to follow?
The radio etiquette that I follow is you want to identify the person. You want to make sure that you continue to identify that person, because they're on radio. There's not going to be something at the bottom that says this is...
Right, if someone's just tuning in, they want to know.
Right, you want to know who it is. And then there's all that technical stuff. You want to be about a fist away from the microphone. You want to be able to talk. You want to be able to hear them. If they have a throat lozenge or a gum or something, you want that out, because it's distracting. A lot of times microphones in a radio studio are here, they come down, and then they're on a table, and sometimes when people talk, they'll bang on the table, and then you're like, no, you can't do that. So that kind of stuff, there's all that technical stuff. And otherwise, it's pretty much anything goes with what is legal to talk about on the airwaves.
Right. And my last question for you is, I know that you teach radio production and interviewing here at St. Rose.
I do.
So what do you like about teaching at St. Rose?
I was a student here at St. Rose in the late 1980s and early 1990s. It was here where they said to me, okay, well, we're going to teach you this stuff, but if you have a job, then we'll work with you and we'll help you. And the people who were here then, and many who are still here, were wonderful to me, and I've always been very appreciative of that, and I learned so much about every aspect of radio and television here. So when the opportunity came and I was asked if I would like to teach, again by the same people who taught me, and they became my mentors in teaching, and that you could work with students and I don't want to make this sound cliche and say, give back, but I think what it is that because I will now sound very selfish and say that the personal gratitude and the amazing feeling I get in doing that, it's the best thing I've ever done. I love it. I love working with the students. I love talking to them. I feel so great about it. Talk about optimistic. I mean, you guys are great. I love working with students. And I never knew that I would enjoy that as much. It's so much fun. And they make me laugh really hard. And we have a good time, and hopefully we make some good radio programs. I've loved every single solitary minute of it. It's just been an absolute joy. So I never dreamed that there would be something that I would love as much as radio until I started doing this.
Right. Do you see jobs in the future for your students in radio?
Wow. I hope so. I think so. Again, optimism. I feel that there will always be a need for content. And I don't know, that may come differently. That may come in a radio or a television or online or in an app. who knows what is out
But
there.
it'll always be there.
But you're always going to need somebody telling you what the weather is. You're always going to need somebody telling you what happened at the grocery store and the fire yesterday. You're always going to need somebody to tell you what's happening in Washington, what's happening throughout the world. You're always going to want to know about that new movie that's coming out or that new album that's coming out. So I think there's always going to be a need for content. And as long as there's a need for content, I think as long as the students are open-minded and are willing to work in a variety of mediums and work very hard and do a lot of different things, that they have great promise.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for answering our questions today.
It's a delight. You did a great job. Thank you.
Thank you. That's all the time we have for today. Thanks for watching, and tune in for our next Teen V segment.